where small pieces of metal with ordinary face values suddenly become treasures worth life-changing amounts of money, and in this video we are diving deep into one of the most fascinating examples in modern American numismatics, the 1969 Roosevelt dime. A coin that at first glance looks like any other 10-cent piece in your pocket change, but under the right circumstances can be worth an astonishing $6 million, and the reasons behind this incredible jump in value from its face denomination of just one dime to multi-million-dollar treasure lie in the history of coin minting in the United States, the nature of errors that can occur at the mint, the presence of rare varieties and misstruck pieces, and the obsession of collectors who are always chasing after the most unique and elusive items for their collections. So let's start by reminding ourselves that the Roosevelt dime series was first introduced in 1946 as a tribute to President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who passed away in 1945, and this design replaced the Mercury dime which had been circulating since 1916. The obverse features a portrait of Roosevelt designed by John R. Sinek, and the reverse carries the torch, olive branch, and oak branch symbolizing liberty, peace, and strength. And when the Denver Mint produced the 1969 dimes, they struck tens of millions of them, most of which went unnoticed into circulation and were used daily for small transactions like paying for newspapers, vending machine sodas, or bus fares, and for the vast majority of people there was nothing special about a 1969 dime, it was just another coin. But the fascinating thing about minting coins is that despite the precision and technological advancements, errors do happen. And sometimes those errors create coins that are so unusual and scarce that they skyrocket in value far beyond what anyone could imagine. And when we talk about errors, we can be referring to several different categories such as double dies, off-center strikes, wrong planchets, clipped planchets, die cracks, repunched mint marks, and even rare transitional issues where the wrong metal composition is used. So with the 1969 dime, the intrigue comes from the possibility that certain errors occurred during its production, and these include mistaken mint marks, misplaced mint marks, or double dies that make the lettering or numbers appear doubled when examined under magnification. And for collectors, these varieties are not just minor curiosities but treasures that connect directly to the story of how coins were made, how quality control sometimes slipped, and how chance allowed a small number of flawed coins to escape the mint and land in the hands of people who may or may not have realized what they had. And this is where the real thrill of coin collecting comes into play, because the possibility that a simple coin in your change purse could actually be a $6 million rarity captures the imagination. It creates excitement, and it pushes people to search their jars of old coins, to hunt through rolls from the bank, and to keep their eyes open for anything unusual. And when we focus specifically on the 1969 Roosevelt dime, we are reminded that even though billions of dimes exist, it is only the rarest combinations of errors or mistakes that elevate one example to extraordinary heights. Imagine, for instance, a coin struck on a wrong planchet, like a dime struck on a penny blank, or a dime struck with missing clad layers revealing the copper core, or perhaps a coin with a dramatic off-center strike where half the design is missing, or more specifically a coin where the mint mark D has been misplaced or repunched in a way that creates a unique visual anomaly. Such coins are not only attractive to error collectors but also represent tangible evidence of the human and mechanical processes behind minting. And in the case of this legendary $6 million valuation, it is often tied to the combination of rarity, condition, demand, and storytelling, because the market value of coins is not fixed by the government but is created by the interactions of buyers and sellers, collectors and dealers, auction houses and bidders. And when something is truly unique, the price can reach astronomical levels, just like we've seen with other famous coins such as the 1933 Double Eagle, which sold for over $7 million, or the 1794 Flowing Hair Dollar, which fetched over $10 million. So when a 1969 dime with extraordinary errors appears, its price can logically leap far beyond expectations. Now let's think about the psychology of why collectors are willing to pay millions for such a piece. For one thing, it represents ownership of something no one else has, a piece of history, a mystery from the minting process, and an artifact that will forever be unique. For another, it is about prestige and the story that comes with the coin. Imagine telling people you own a dime worth $6 million, that alone has a magnetism that transcends the raw material value of the coin. And when we examine how to identify such rarities, it comes down to careful inspection. Collectors and professionals use magnifying glasses, microscopes, and detailed references to look for doubling in the words Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, or the date 1969, they examine the mint mark D to see if it has been repunched, misplaced, or exhibits signs of hand punching, which was common before mint marks were standardized in the dies. They look at the edges to see if there are clipped or partial collars, they weigh the coin to check if it is struck on a wrong planchet, and all of these diagnostics combined create a picture of whether the coin is just an ordinary dime worth 10 cents or a multi-million-dollar treasure. And as incredible as it sounds, many of the world's rarest coins were discovered by ordinary people who simply paid attention. Sometimes a coin like this can turn up and change, sometimes it sits unnoticed in an old collection for decades until someone realizes its significance, and sometimes it emerges from bank rolls or estate sales, and that is what makes the story of the 1969 D dime so powerful, because it reminds us that treasures are out there hidden in plain sight. And beyond the errors and mint mark varieties, there is also the question of condition, because coin grading plays a crucial role in determining value. A coin in poor condition might be interesting but worth far less, whereas a coin in mint state with sharp details, luster, and minimal marks can fetch exponentially higher prices. So when we talk about a $6 million dime, we are not only talking about the rarity of its error but also its pristine state of preservation. And that combination of rarity and quality creates the magic formula for astronomical value. And while many collectors will never encounter such a coin in their lifetimes, the story keeps the passion alive, encouraging people to keep searching, to study coins more carefully, and to dream of one day making a life-changing discovery. And in a larger context, this story also fits into the history of Liberty coins in general, because the term Liberty has been central to American coinage since the very beginning. From the early flowing hair and draped bust designs to the standing Liberty quarters and Liberty head nickels, the concept of liberty represents freedom, independence, and the ideals of the nation, and the Roosevelt dime continues that tradition by pairing the image of a president with symbols of liberty on the reverse. So in many ways the rare 1969 D dime ties back to a much longer legacy of Liberty coins and their evolving place in American history. And when we zoom back out to look at the coin market overall, we see that these spectacular sales and valuations have a ripple effect. They inspire new collectors to enter the hobby, they create headlines in the media, and they reinforce the idea that coins are not just metal but history, art, and investment all wrapped into one. And this is why in today's world, with online auctions, global marketplaces, and coin shows attended by thousands, a coin like the 1969 D dime with unique errors can command such high figures. Because the demand is global, the interest is intense, and the competition among wealthy collectors is fierce, driving prices upward. And ultimately what makes this story so captivating for all of us is that it proves the ordinary can become extraordinary, that something as small and overlooked as a dime can hold within it the potential for unimaginable wealth, and that history, mistakes, and chance can combine to transform pocket change into priceless treasure. So as you listen to this story, remember to check your own coins carefully, because while the odds are slim, the possibility is real, and that is enough to keep the adventure alive, the search ongoing, and the dream of finding a $6 million dime forever burning brightly in the hearts of collectors everywhere. Today's video, where we dive deep into the world of rare coins and the extraordinary story of the 1981 D Roosevelt 1 dime Liberty coin, a coin that on the surface looks like just an ordinary piece of pocket change with a face value of only 10 cents, but which, due to rare errors, unique mint mark issues, and historical factors tied to its production, has become a legend among collectors, with an estimated market value in some cases reaching as high as $5 million, and today we are going to explore everything about it in one continuous story, so that you can truly understand why a coin worth only 10 cents in everyday use could rise to become one of the most valuable treasures in the numismatic world. And as we get started, I want to thank you for joining me, because in this journey we will not only talk about this particular 1981 D dime but also dive into the fascinating history of Roosevelt dimes, the background of Liberty coins, the concept of mint errors and how they shape the market, the role of collectors and grading companies, the subtle details of die varieties and mistakes, and the way such small differences can completely alter the price of a coin, turning it from something you could drop on the floor without thinking into something so rare and desirable that it could sell for the price of a mansion. And if you stick with me, you will come away with knowledge not only about this specific dime but also about the broader world of rare coins, because when we talk About the 1981 Roosevelt dime, we are looking at an example of how history, technology, economics, and human error all collide to create something of incredible value. And so let's begin with a little background, because the Roosevelt dime itself was first issued in 1946 to honor Franklin Delano Roosevelt, the 32nd President of the United States, who had guided the nation through the Great Depression and most of World War II, and whose image has since remained a symbol of leadership and resilience. And the dime chosen to carry his portrait became an everyday coin used by millions, but also one that through the decades has seen numerous variations and errors, which now serve as the backbone of a thriving collector's market. And by 1981 the Denver Mint was one of the main facilities producing these dimes, stamping out hundreds of millions of them. But among that massive sea of coins, a very small number emerged with rare mistakes that would make them historically significant and incredibly valuable. And this is where the 1981 dime story begins, because you might wonder how a coin that was supposed to be just another mass-produced piece of change could suddenly command a value of $5 million, and the answer lies in the world of mint errors and die varieties, because errors can occur at any stage of the minting process, whether during the preparation of the dies, the striking of the coins, or even in the placement of mint marks. And in the case of the 1981 dime, collectors have identified rare instances where the mint mark was misaligned, doubled, or even missing, and such anomalies instantly make a coin different from its ordinary counterparts. But what truly fuels the value is scarcity combined with demand, because when a particular error is extremely rare and only a handful of coins are known to exist, collectors will bid extraordinary amounts to add it to their collection, and this is what drives the 1981 dime's astronomical price. But to understand it more deeply, we should look at the nature of mint marks, because the D stands for the Denver Mint, one of the main branches of the United States Mint, and mint marks are small details often overlooked by casual users but cherished by collectors because they tell the story of where and how a coin was made, and in some cases like 1981, subtle mistakes in applying or shaping those mint marks created rare variations that have since been classified as error coins, and these errors can range from a faint doubling of the D, to a mispunched mint mark where the D overlaps with another impression, to instances where the D appears in a strange position, or even cases where the D is missing altogether. And these mint mark errors are incredibly significant because they transform the coin into something unique, and uniqueness in numismatics almost always means value. And when you combine uniqueness with scarcity and historical importance, you get multi-million-dollar valuations. But beyond mint mark errors, there are also possibilities of die errors such as double dies, off-center strikes, planchet flaws, or even rare transitional errors where the wrong metal composition might have been used, and each of these creates its own category of collectible, with the rarest ones achieving breathtaking prices at auctions. And the 1981 dime has become a symbol of this phenomenon because examples with spectacular mint errors have sold for extraordinary sums, and some experts in the field have suggested that a pristine, uncirculated, error-rich 1981 dime could indeed reach or even surpass the $5 million mark in the right market conditions, especially when certified by a top grading company such as PCGS or NGC, because grading plays a massive role in establishing value, with coins graded mint state 65 or higher commanding prices many times greater than those with wear, and that is why collectors pay close attention to surfaces, luster, strike quality, and details when evaluating a coin. And in the case of the 1981 dime, having a high grade combined with a dramatic mint error creates a perfect storm of desirability. But one might ask why anyone would pay millions for a coin that in essence was a mistake, and the answer lies in the psychology of collectors and the economic principles of rarity and demand, because humans have always valued the rare and unique, whether it be gemstones, art, stamps, or coins, and error coins embody the idea of rarity in its purest form, because while billions of coins are made perfectly to standard, the tiny fraction that escape with mistakes become prized treasures, almost like natural diamonds among pebbles. And furthermore, the story behind an error coin enhances its mystique, because every time a collector holds a 1981 error dime, they are holding not just a piece of metal but a story of how human oversight, machine malfunction, and historical context all combine to create something irreplaceable. And when wealthy collectors or investors enter the scene, willing to spend millions to secure such a story, the market price soars beyond comprehension, and this explains how a coin with a face value of 10 cents could reach $5 million in worth. but to fully appreciate the scale of this transformation we should think about the difference between face value and market value. Because face value is the nominal worth assigned by the issuing government, in this case 10 cents. But market value is determined by what buyers are willing to pay, and in rare coin markets, that difference can be astronomical, as with the 1981 D dime, where the market value exceeds the face value by 50 million times, a staggering leap that illustrates the power of rarity, demand, and collector passion, and this also ties into the broader history of Liberty coins. Because the word liberty has appeared on U.S. coins since the very beginning as a symbol of freedom and democracy, and throughout history coins bearing liberty in one form or another have often been central to major collecting trends, with certain Liberty coins becoming legendary in their own right, and the Roosevelt dime continues the tradition with its inscription, Liberty, alongside Roosevelt's portrait, reinforcing its connection to American ideals, and when that design becomes the foundation for a rare error like the 1981 D, its symbolic weight only grows, making it not just a monetary artifact but a cultural icon, and this is why discussions of Liberty coins and their real market value often highlight the difference between what the coin is supposed to represent in everyday transactions and what it has come to represent in the collector's world, because in the collector's market Liberty coins can embody freedom in another sense, financial freedom, since owning one can literally mean the difference between poverty and wealth if it sells for millions, and that possibility is what excites so many people about coin collecting, the dream that in your pocket change you might hold a fortune, and with the 1981 D dime that dream has become reality for those lucky enough to find or inherit one of these rare treasures, and speaking of finding them, it is important to know how to identify rare and error coins, because identification is the key to unlocking value, and collectors are trained to look for details under magnification, to study mint marks, to examine edges, to check for doubling, off-centering, die cracks, or unusual features, and to cross-reference their finds with established numismatic guides and auction records, and for the 1981 D dime specifically, the focus is often on the mint mark, its position, clarity, and any doubling, as well as on the overall strike and surfaces that may reveal hidden errors, and learning to identify such features is part of the skill and thrill of collecting, because while most coins will be ordinary, the rare few that show mistakes can be worth life-changing sums, and this possibility keeps the hunt alive, with collectors all over the world checking their pocket change, rolls of dimes from banks, or old collections passed down through families, hoping to spot that one coin with an error that transforms it into a multi-million-dollar piece, and so the 1981 D dime stands as a perfect case study of how numismatics works at its most fascinating level. Everyone to this exciting video where today we dive deep into the world of rare and valuable coins, focusing on one of the most intriguing treasures in American coinage history, the 1989 P. Liberty Roosevelt dime, a coin that has fascinated collectors for decades and has reached astonishing values in the marketplace, with rare error examples fetching up to $4 million, an amount that completely defies its humble face value of just 10 cents, and in this video we will unravel its full story. From its origins, minting history, significance in American coinage, to the special circumstances, errors, and mistakes that turned what was meant to be an everyday piece of currency into a potential fortune, as well as exploring the broader world of rare dimes, how to identify them, and why certain mint mark errors and striking anomalies can create staggering values that collectors are willing to pay, and to truly appreciate why the 1989 P dime is such an important and unique coin we must begin with a little history because the Roosevelt dime was first issued in 1946 to honor President Franklin D. Roosevelt, who had passed away the year before. He was beloved as the leader who guided the United States through the Great Depression and World War II, and he was also closely associated with the March of Dimes campaign which worked tirelessly to combat polio. So the choice of his portrait on the dime was symbolic and fitting. Since then the Roosevelt dime has become one of the longest running series in U.S. coinage, produced in billions across decades and generally considered common pocket change, yet as is often the case in numismatics, hidden among these billions are rare gems created by minting mishaps, errors, or anomalies that slipped through quality control, and these are the coins that excite collectors, because while the average dime from 1989 P is worth no more than its face value, there are stories of extraordinary examples that sell for astronomical sums due to errors, and among them is the legendary case of a 1989 Roosevelt dime whose value was driven sky-high due to a mint mark error and other striking mistakes that make it one of the most unique coins in modern history, with auction estimates and collector sales pushing it into the millions, even up to an incredible $4 million. A price that shocks casual observers but makes perfect sense when you understand the coin collecting world, because rarity, demand, condition, and error type all combine to drive value, and in the case of the 1989 dime, its story illustrates how an ordinary object can become a life-changing discovery for anyone lucky enough to find one in circulation or hidden away in an old collection. Now the Philadelphia Mint, marked by the letter P on coins, was responsible for producing hundreds of millions of dimes in 1989. And generally these coins are extremely common, with no silver content, made of copper-nickel-clad composition, and intended for everyday circulation, but within that massive production run, minting errors sometimes occurred, and certain errors such as missing mint marks, double strikes, off-center strikes, misaligned dies, or transitional mistakes can elevate a coin from being worth 10 cents to thousands or even millions of dollars, and the 1989 Roosevelt dime has examples reported with extraordinary features, including mint mark anomalies where the P appears distorted, misplaced, doubled, or in some cases missing altogether, which instantly makes such a coin stand out to collectors because mint mark errors are highly prized, especially in modern coinage where precision is normally strict, and when one of these errors combines with an otherwise pristine condition coin graded at the highest mint state levels by professional grading services, its rarity skyrockets and the bidding wars among collectors push the value into realms no one could imagine for a dime. Hence the staggering $4 million valuation that has made headlines and fueled interest in searching old coin jars, bank rolls, and inherited collections, as collectors hope to stumble upon such a treasure. And beyond mint mark errors there are other possibilities in the 1989 dime that add to its mystique, including die clashes where the obverse and reverse dies strike without a planchet in between leaving ghostly impressions on the coin, broad strikes that occur when the coin is struck outside the retaining collar leading to a wider than normal dime, and double die errors where the design elements appear duplicated, all of which can make a coin highly collectible, and in rare instances when such errors coincide with a high-grade example, their value surges exponentially. So while the average 1989 dime may be pocket change, the possibility of a dramatic error coin transforms it into a multi-million-dollar collectible. And this is where the true magic of numismatics lies, because it demonstrates how history, craftsmanship, chance, and human error can collide to create something far greater than its intended purpose, and as we trace the history of the Roosevelt dime series we see that certain years stand out because of notable errors, for example the famous 1980